Hi, leaders. I want to talk to you today about the importance of an enterprise priority list and the importance of protecting your teammates from outside unauthorized projects that will dilute their focus of effort from authorized projects and initiative. So a little bit of a backdrop. When I was a senior executive in a large company, I was responsible for most of the back office, human resources, IT, marketing, procurement. If it wasn't a sales function, it generally rolled up to me. The company matured greatly during my time there, and we became very sophisticated and disciplined about establishing next year's priorities. And so when next year became this year, we usually had anywhere from 6 to 9 enterprise priorities stacked, triaged from 1 to 6 or 1 to 9, whatever the appropriate number was, in order of importance. And the importance was, if it was number one, that meant it was the number one project initiative that could assist with our overall vision, mission, strategy, goals, and objectives. I think you get the concept here. It worked well until we started getting what I called drive-by shootings, for a funny way of saying it. And the drive-by shootings, or the end runs, is when someone would approach somebody. Let's use the IT group as an example. Somebody would not approach me, would not approach the chief information officer, would not approach the respective department head, manager, or team leader. They would instead approach what I would refer to as the desk level technician, who is usually a very competent but fairly junior teammate in the IT group. Well, they would approach him and say, "Hey, listen, do you think you can do this for me? I don't think it'll take long. Could you do this?" And 9 times out of 10, that junior person, that desk level technician, would genuinely want to help, overestimate his ability to tackle this, combined with underestimating how long it was going to take and how difficult the requested task or action was going to take. Or worse, the person that approached him was much more senior to him, and he just felt an obligation to say, yeah, didn't feel he could say no. It's not my place to say no to an executive or a department head or a manager or really anybody in the chain of command, because most people were senior to him and her. So this all came to a head when this IT group had done magical things. We had done several major software implementations, and they pulled them off impeccably. And anyone with an IT background or an operational background in business knows there are points in time in an IT project where in the later stages, the team really does have to work a lot of nights and weekends. They're working on the system when daily operations are shut down, so they can go in and actually tweak the engine, so to speak, and not interrupt routine business operations. So working weekends, and sometimes a bunch of weekends in a row, was absolutely the norm when appropriate. And of course, as good leaders, we would take care and try and take care of our folks, and we would have, I would be there. I'm certainly not a techie at all, but I would be there on that Saturday, bringing coffee and just lending moral support for whatever it's worth. So it wasn't an out of body experience for an IT guy to be asked to work nights and weekends. Usually the whole team would have to do that, or most of the whole IT group. Well, we had finished our projects pretty much, and we certainly had nothing going on to the extent that it required nights and weekends, because I also established a rule that if anybody in my sphere of influence, anybody was tasked with working overtime or during a weekend, that I was to know about it. And that meant the whole chain of command would know about it. And they would say, Mike, we have to do this. And there's 3 people that have this skill. And so they're going to work the weekend. Well, I would know about it. Obviously, I would approve of it. And I would usually go down and say, I understand you 3 are working the weekend. I so appreciate it. Is there anything else I can help you with, set you up for success? And I've already talked to your chain of command and they're going to take care of you. You know, you're going to get some time off, you know, compensatory time off. So business as usual, certainly nothing going on for weekends and nights. And I got a phone call on my office phone. Now remember, I am a very senior executive. I'm a C-level officer. And I get a phone call and I answer the phone. I said, hello, Mike 𝐈'𝐥𝐿. And I hear a woman's voice on it. She said, are you the Mike 𝐈'𝐥𝐿 that's in charge of the IT group? And I said, yes, I am. And she started laying into me. I was like, ooh. She said, listen, I don't know who you think you are, but you have caused my husband to work every night for the last month and every weekend for the last month, all day long, Saturday and Sunday. And I want to know, is this how you treat your valued teammates? And I was like, wow. I said, well, ma'am, I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not aware of anything in the IT group that requires anybody to work nights and weekends, but I'll get to the bottom of it. I appreciate your call. I'll get to the bottom of it and I'll get you an answer. I'll call you back. And she said, fine. She was polite, but she was obviously scheming, you know, because, you know, her and her children are missing their father. Now, the individual in question, her husband, was a very good IT person. I mean, really good. He was one of our best teammates, a franchise player, as they say. So I went down to the CIO and said, are you aware of this? I just got this call from his wife and blah, blah, blah. And he goes, what? No. So long story made short, he got to the bottom of it, came up to see me and said, Mike, I hate to tell you this because I know your stance on unauthorized, drive-by shootings and, and end runs, but he got himself in trouble. He agreed to do several additional unauthorized projects or tasks out of the goodness of his heart. And not only did he overestimate his ability to do these quickly, he underestimated how complicated some of them are. Worse, by focusing a lot of his effort on these unauthorized projects, he's fallen behind on some of his actual assigned tasks. And that's why he took it upon himself to work nights and weekends. Nobody, not his team leader, his manager, his department head, nor I, knew that this was going on. And he said, so I've got a grip on it. Those projects, I've contacted the offenders and told them, don't do that again. You know, you're not to do that. And by the way, all work has ceased on this. If you want it done, we have a disciplined process. Put it up through the process. They might get approved, and they might get approved right now, or they may have to wait till next year or next quarter or whatever. So I realized that this posed, and it really did, it posed a significant threat to our enterprise priority list, that we had worked so hard to institute that concept and enforce it. And we were really rocking and rolling on pulling off major projects and initiative. We didn't fail at that because we had a disciplined process. Competent teammates plus a disciplined process that's enforced will yield good results in just about every case. So I told the CIO, I would like to talk to the IT group, who, I was the executive in charge of. So I got them all there, about 175 talented men and women. I really loved them. I had actually served as the CIO for several years prior to the current CIO taking over. So they knew me well, and I knew them well, and I loved them. These people were really good. And we got them in the auditorium, and I started on it. I said, you know, my philosophy on this, and I related in an anonymous way. You know, we had, you know, someone was discovered working nights and weekends. I didn't say anything about the wife or anything like that. And I could see the individual out there, and he was kind of red-faced because he knew, you know, Mike's doing his best to protect my identity, but I know it's me, and I'm embarrassed that I did this, you know. And so I told him, we have this enterprise priority list for a reason. You know what it is for. You know the official policy on who tasks you. And you know the official policy is if it's not your boss or your boss's boss, someone within the IT chain of command that has authority to divert your focus of effort or to cause you to work on something other than your formally assigned tasks, you don't do it. In fact, you report it to your boss and say, hey, listen, I just want to let you know, Joe Schmuckatelli actually approached me and asked for this. You don't need to take any action. I stuffed it and said, no, go through the chain of command. I'm not allowed to work on it. I don't think it's difficult. I'd love to do it, but I'm not authorized to do that, you know? And so I labeled these. I wanted to figure out a term that they would know. But rather than drive-by shootings or end runs, I called them rogue projects. Rogue, as in a wild man, an undisciplined person, something that's gone wild and uncontrollable. And I told them something. I told them, obviously, the importance of not doing and succumbing to agreeing to rogue projects, the threat that it posed to the enterprise and getting real tasks done, approved tasks, prioritized tasks done. And I said something that I never before and never again said during my entire 4-decade leadership career. And I told them in plain English, in a loud voice, if I catch anybody participating in a rogue project, and it's proven that you have agreed to do it, and in fact, you are acting upon a rogue project, I will fire you. Now think about that. Generally speaking, I think it's very poor form for a leader to say, I'll fire you. Hey, you know, you better do it. I'll fire you. I think it's poor form. Everybody knows you're the boss. Everybody knows if something doesn't happen, you have the authority to terminate somebody if it's just and appropriate. I never felt the need to say that. And 99% of the leaders don't say that. It's usually the guys that are ego driven and want to, you know, flex their importance that, hey, I remember now, I got your job. I can fire you. But I chose to say it for emphasis. And I did tell them, I've never said this to an audience before. I've never said this to someone that worked in my chain of command. But I am dead serious. I will fire you and anyone else that is participating or knows about this project. I will fire you. And then I will go to my executive colleague who owns that person that did the end run and demand that that person get fired. That's how serious I am about defending our enterprise priorities and defending you and setting you up for success. So I don't ask you to do 15 projects, but it's only 6 of them are authorized. And if you just focus on those 6, you're pretty much working all day, every day. I mean, it's you know, those are challenging enough without laying on all these rogue projects. And so the message was received loud and clear. And to the best of my knowledge, we never, ever had anybody engage in a rogue projects. Some attempts at rogue projects, at drive-by shootings, still continued, and they were reported. And usually it was by somebody fairly new in the company and didn't know the company's policy and how tightly we controlled our people's focus of efforts, you know, so that we could legitimately, you know, make them work hard, obviously ask a lot of them, but set them up for success and not ask them to do things beyond their capacity. And so that we didn't set a stage to where people routinely were working 14 and 18 hours a day. So I wanted to share this lesson to you because I can pretty much guarantee you that in most companies that do not have a disciplined process to establish priorities, project lists, initiative lists, statements of work and things like that, that you've probably got rogue projects going on. And so I would ask you leaders, first of all, are you aware of this going on? And if you say, oh, not in my department, Mike, I would say, make sure, the S in supervision is always the most paramount thing. Make sure, don't think that it's not going on. Be sure that it's not going on. And I encourage you to have this same kind of talk with your teammates if you haven't had it already. And stay vigilant, supervise this. This is what leadership is all about. And secondly, I would encourage all leaders, in fact, everybody that's watching this video, to do some serious, honest, brutally honest self-reflection and ask yourself, am I guilty of drive-by shootings and end runs and asking people to create rogue projects that are unauthorized, but things that I would really like to have done? Am I guilty of that? And if you are, check yourself, because you're part of the problem. And leaders are obviously supposed to be part of the solution. So that's today's lesson, leadership lesson. I hope it's accepted well. I am making a video about this because I've got a lot of experience now as an executive coach. I've been in many, many companies, and this is a pervasive problem. You have good people willing, wanting to do everything, and left to their own devices, they will almost always overload themselves. And I would say that a company that has this kind of culture, that they do business and they allow this, or it's actually they have no discipline process for enterprise priorities and all that, that company will struggle to achieve mediocre results at best. Usually there are some significant failures on the real major priorities. And, when you start talking about IT projects, you're usually talking multi-million-dollar investments in software as a service, software, hardware, consultants, and things like that. These projects must be pulled off on time, on budget, and deliver the goods as promised. And when you fail one of these things, everybody knows about it, and everybody involved, there's two kinds of famous, I say, the good kind of famous and the bad kind of famous. And when you are associated with a team that fails a major project, and clearly the finger points to that team, legitimately so, everyone that's associated with that project becomes the wrong kind of famous very quickly. And we've all been there. And as you know, that's not a good place to be. So food for thought, leaders. I hope this causes, just you to stimulate some thinking and some reflection on you and your team. So have a great day. And as always, go forth and lead well.